Xenia was wiping the last traces of construction dust from the windowsill when she heard voices in the hallway. Artem had brought his parents earlier than expected, an hour before the official start of the housewarming. A sense of unease tightened in her stomach. Over the 3 years of marriage, she had learned to read such surprises from her husband. They usually foretold trouble. "Ksyusha, why is the sofa not where we suggested?" Nina began without greeting. "And the wallpaper? We told you beige would be more practical." Xenia clenched the cloth in her hands. Every word from her mother-in-law struck her nerves like a hammer on glass. Over the months of renovation, Nina had criticized every choice they made, from the color of the tiles in the bathroom to the shape of the chandelier in the bedroom. Artem silently walked into the kitchen, avoiding his wife's gaze. Xenia knew this trick of his, disappearing at the first sign of conflict by heart. At such moments, her husband turned into a ghost, physically present, but emotionally absent. "Mom is right," came a voice from the kitchen. "We should have listened to her advice." Xenia caught her breath. They had spent their last savings on this renovation, counting every ruble 3 times, and now Artem was agreeing with his mother's reproaches. She threw the cloth into the sink and went into the living room, where Nina continued her inspection. "The parquet is not bad," Nina deigned to praise, "but tiles would have been better in the hallway, more practical for a family." What family? Xenia thought bitterly. She and Artem had no children, and judging by his behavior over the past 6 months, none were in sight. The doorbell saved her from having to respond. At the door stood Ksenia's parents, Tamara and Victor, with a bouquet of roses and a box of cake. Her mother looked elegant in a new blue dress she had bought especially for her daughter's housewarming. "How beautiful it turned out," Tamara exclaimed, hugging her daughter. "You've created such coziness. Well done." The contrast between the mother's reactions was striking. While Nina searched for flaws with the persistence of a detective, Tamara rejoiced in every detail like a child. Xenia felt the tension in her shoulders ease slightly. Artem came out of the kitchen with a tray of glasses. His face wore the strained smile of a host. He greeted his in-laws, but Xenia noticed a strange gleam in his eyes. He got that look when he was preparing for something important. "Let's raise a toast to the new home," Artem announced, handing out glasses of champagne. Everyone stood in a circle in the middle of the living room. Xenia took a glass, but her hands trembled slightly. Something about her husband's behavior was unsettling. His gestures were too theatrical, his voice too loud. "I would like to say a few words," Artem began, raising his glass. "Thank you to Ksenia's parents for helping with this apartment." Tamara smiled, but Xenia grew even more alert. There was something in her husband's voice that she couldn't decipher. "But we have some news," Artem continued, glancing at his mother. "We have decided to give this apartment to Alina. She is getting married soon, and we will manage somehow on our own." Time stood still. The glass in Ksenia's hand wobbled. Champagne splashed onto the floor. Nina beamed like a Christmas tree. Her face transformed. The critical wrinkles disappeared, replaced by an enthusiastic flush. "Artem, what a wonderful man you are!" she exclaimed. "I always knew you think about the family. Alina will be so happy."
Xenia stood there, struck by lightning. The apartment had been bought with her money, her inheritance from her grandmother, plus her salary as a nurse over 2 years. Artem worked as a security guard and earned 3 times less. How could he dispose of their home without her consent? Tamara and Victor were silent, but their faces turned to stone. Xenia's mother slowly placed her unfinished glass on the table, her movements dangerously deliberate. "Interesting," Tamara said quietly. "And does Xenia know about this?" Artem fidgeted but continued to smile. "Of course she knows. We are a family. We decide everything together." Xenia opened her mouth to scream that it was a lie, that she knew nothing, that he had gone mad. But Tamara beat her to it, rising from her chair with the dignity of a queen. "Wonderful," Xenia's mother said in a voice that chilled the room. "Then Alina can take the apartment documents right now." Artem froze with the glass at his lips. Nina frowned, There was something troubling in Tamara's voice. "What documents?" Artem asked. "The ones registered in my daughter's name," Tamara explained calmly. "You see, the apartment was bought with Ksenia's money, and she is the sole owner here." The silence became ringing. Nina opened her mouth but made no sound. Artem paled so much that freckles, usually invisible, appeared on his face. "How is it only hers?" Artem stammered. "We are husband and wife." "Yes, you are husband and wife," Tamara nodded, "but the money for the apartment was provided by my daughter. Inheritance from her grandmother plus her salary as a nurse over 2 years. And since she is a smart girl, she registered everything in her name before the wedding." Ksenia remembered that day 2 years ago when they signed the documents at the notary. Her mother had insisted that the apartment be registered only in her name. "Just in case," Tamara had said then. Ksenia had been offended by her mother's distrust of Artem, but now she could have kissed her for this foresight. So, if Artem wants to give the apartment to his sister, he should first ask permission from the real owner, from Ksenia. Nina clutched her chest. Artem choked on champagne and started coughing. "Kusha, you won't object, will you?" Artem asked hoarsely when he stopped coughing. "Alina is family, after all." "Family?" Ksenia repeated, her voice steely. "And who am I? A stranger?" For the first time in 3 years of marriage, she saw confusion in her husband's eyes. He was used to her agreeing with all his decisions, not arguing with his mother, and remaining silent at family gatherings. A submissive wife, a convenient daughter-in-law. "You don't understand," Artem began. "Alina is getting married. They have nowhere to live." "And where will we live?" Ksenia interrupted sharply. "On the street?" Tamara silently watched her daughter, a hint of pride appearing on her face. Victor coughed into his fist, hiding a smile. Nina darted glances between them like a rat cornered. "We could rent something," Artem muttered, "or move in with our parents temporarily." "Which parents? Yours, into a one-room apartment where it's already cramped?" Nina flinched. The idea of accommodating a young family in her small apartment clearly did not inspire her. "Or to my parents, in a 2-room Khrushchevka on the outskirts." Artem silenced. He knew very well that his in-laws barely had enough space for themselves, and his father-in-law openly disliked him. "You know what, dear husband," Ksenia said, placing her glass on the table. "If you care so much about your sister, you can move in with her yourself, and the apartment remains mine." The air in the room became thick like before a storm. "You can't do this to me," Artem exploded. "I am your husband." "A husband who wants to give away my home to a stranger," Ksenia replied coldly. "Alina is not a stranger, she is my sister." "She is a stranger to me." These words sounded like a verdict. Nina gasped and clutched her chest. Tamara approached her daughter and placed a hand on her shoulder, a gesture of support and approval. "Ksenia is right," Victor said, speaking up for the first time that evening. "You can't dispose of someone else's property." "How dare you?" Nina cried. "We're family. We should help each other." "Family," Tamara nodded, "but help should be voluntary, not forced." Ksenia looked at her husband and realized she was seeing him for the first time, not as a loving...
"You are destroying the family," the mother-in-law screamed, "over some bricks and wallpaper." "Family," Tamara nodded, "but the family was destroyed by your son when he decided he could dispose of someone else's property." Victor took out his phone and started typing something. Ksenia realized he was calling a taxi. Her parents were not going to stay at this celebration of life that had turned into a wake for the marriage. "Mom, don't call a taxi," Ksenia said. "You are not the ones who should leave." She turned to Artyom and Nina. "I ask you to leave my apartment." "Yours?" Artyom yelled. "I have lived here for 3 years." "Lived," Ksenia corrected him. "And now you are a guest, an unwanted one." Nina staggered and grabbed the wall. She clearly did not expect such a turn of events. In her plans, her daughter-in-law was supposed to silently agree to all the conditions, as usual. "You will regret this," Artyom hissed through his teeth. "You will be left alone. No one will take you." "Better alone than with someone who does not respect me," Ksenia replied. Her voice did not tremble. Her hands did not shake. For the first time in a long time, she felt strong. Artyom grabbed his jacket from the hanger in the hallway. His movements were sharp and angry. He expected his wife to give in at the last moment, ask for forgiveness, and agree to his terms. But Ksenia stood motionless, looking at him without a shadow of regret. "Take your things tomorrow," she said. "And the keys?" Artyom asked at the door. "Leave them on the nightstand." He threw the bunch of keys so that they clattered loudly on the floor. Nina hobbled after her son, muttering something about ingratitude and broken families. The door slammed shut. The apartment fell silent. Tamara picked up the keys and handed them to her daughter. "Now this is truly your home," she said. Ksenia took the keys. The metal was warm from her palm. "Thank you, Mom," Ksenia said softly. "If it weren't for you, if it weren't for me, you would have managed on your own," Tamara smiled. "Just later." Victor hugged his daughter's shoulders. "We are proud of you, Sunshine. Not every woman finds the strength to stand up for herself." Ksenia leaned against her father, and for the first time that evening felt like she might cry. But these tears were not from grief, but from relief, as if a heavy burden had fallen from her shoulders. "Now let's celebrate your real housewarming," Tamara suggested, "without unnecessary guests." The three of them sat down at the table. Tamara cut the cake, and Victor opened a second bottle of champagne. For the first time in a long time, Ksenia ate with an appetite. It was getting dark outside. Her parents were getting ready to leave. They had to go to work early tomorrow. Ksenia saw them off at the elevator. "Don't worry about Artyom," Tamara said goodbye. "If he truly loves you, he will find a way to fix everything." "And if not?" Ksenia asked. "Then it's good that you found out now and not 10 years later." The elevator took her parents downstairs. Ksenia returned to the apartment and locked the door with all the locks. In the living room, unfinished glasses stood on the tables and napkins were scattered. But she didn't feel like cleaning up. She wanted to just sit in silence and think. She settled in a chair by the window and looked at the evening city. The streetlights came on one by one like stars in the sky. Somewhere out there, in this sea of lights, Artyom was driving to his mother, telling her what an ungrateful wife he had. The phone rang around midnight. The screen showed her husband's name. Ksenia looked at the vibrating device for a long time, then declined the call. A minute later, it rang again and again. After the fifth time, she turned off the sound. Messages started coming one after another. "Ksyusha, let's talk. I didn't mean to hurt you. Can I come over? Don't be silent, please." She read them without emotion, like a weather report. The words seemed empty, devoid of meaning. In 3 years of marriage, Artyom had never apologized sincerely. All his apologies sounded like a formality, an attempt to quickly close an unpleasant topic. Ksenia turned off her phone and went to bed. The bedroom smelled of fresh paint and hopes for the future. In the morning, she woke up.
"Please open up," he asked through the door. "I need to talk to you." "Talk from there," Ksenia replied, without unlocking the locks. "I realize I was wrong. Forgive me." "Wrong? In what exactly?" The pause dragged on. Artem clearly did not expect such questions. "Well, I shouldn't have decided about the apartment for you." "And what else?" Silence again. "I don't know what you want to hear," he finally admitted. There it was. He still didn't understand what his guilt was. He thought that just saying the magic word sorry would make everything go back to the way it was. "I want to hear the truth," Ksenia said. "Why did you need to give the apartment to Alina?"
She asked Mom to help with housing, and Mom decided to help with my apartment.
Not yours, but ours, bought with my money, Ksenia reminded him. Artem fell silent. The flowers rustled in his hands. Apparently he was nervously crumpling the packaging. "I thought you wouldn't mind," he finally said. "You never argued." "Because no one asked me," Ksenia replied. "You and Mom always decided everything for me. Where to live, how to furnish the house, when to have children, who to be friends with. We wanted what was best. Best for whom? For me or for you?" "Ksyusha, let's not argue," Artem pleaded. "Open the door. Let's talk normally." Normal is when a husband discusses important decisions with his wife, not announces them to guests as a done deal. "Okay, I won't do it again, I promise." "And what about Alina?" Pause. "What about her? Have you given up the idea of giving the apartment to her?" "Well, we haven't talked yet." Ksenia smirked, so Artem still hoped to persuade her. The flowers and chocolates were just the first move in a new game. "Listen to me carefully," she said. "I will never give the apartment to your sister, and if that's unacceptable to you, then we have nothing to talk about." "But we can find a compromise." "What kind? Give her half of the apartment?" Artem didn't answer, but Ksenia understood. That was exactly what he was thinking. In his mind, a compromise meant that his wife should give in at least partially. "Your things are in the hallway. Take them and leave." "Ksyusha, don't be foolish. We love each other." "You love a convenient wife who doesn't object to your decisions, and I love a man who, as it turns out, doesn't exist." She heard him pacing on the landing, shifting from foot to foot. Then there was a rustle. He was taking the bags with his things. "I will wait for you to change your mind," Artem said finally. "Don't wait," Ksenia replied. The steps faded away. The elevator took her ex-husband out of her new life. A week later, Ksenia received a summons to court. Artem had filed for divorce and division of property, demanding half of the apartment as jointly acquired property. She took the documents to a lawyer, an elderly man with kind eyes, recommended by Tamara. "It's a simple case," the lawyer said after reviewing the papers. "The apartment is registered in your name before the marriage and was purchased with your funds. Your husband has no rights to it." "And if he proves that he contributed to the renovation, he could confirm it with receipts." Ksenia remembered. She had made all the major purchases for the renovation. Artem occasionally brought small items, screws, sealant, fasteners, totaling no more than 500 rubles. "He won't be able to," she smiled. "Then don't worry. At most, he could get a small compensation for improvements." The trial went quickly. Artem came with his mother and a lawyer, a young, self-confident man who talked a lot about justice and family values. Ksenia sat with her parents and her lawyer, calmly listening to accusations of greed and selfishness. Nina cried into her handkerchief, playing the part of a suffering.
"And will you teach your son to earn money for an apartment on his own? Maybe then he will find himself a wife." Nina turned around and walked away, her high heels clicking loudly on the asphalt. Artem shuffled after her, hunched over and aged 10 years. "Do you feel sorry for him?" Tamara asked her daughter. Ksenia watched the retreating figures. "No," she answered honestly. "Not at all." A month later, Ksenia ran into Alina at the store. Her former husband's sister looked miserable, dark circles under her eyes, slumped shoulders, cheap clothes. "Hello," Alina greeted uncertainly. "Hello." They stood in line at the checkout, and conversation was inevitable.
I didn't ask Artem to give me your apartment, Alina said quietly. It was Mom's idea.
Ksenia looked at her carefully. The girl was telling the truth. Her eyes showed sincerity. "And what about your wedding now?" Ksenia asked.
It's postponed. The groom moved out when he found out there would be no free housing.
There it was. So Alina had also faced male greed. "I'm sorry," Ksenia said, and she meant it.
Don't be sorry. Alina bitterly smiled. It's better to know the truth now than in a few years. Thank you.
For what?
For not giving in to the persuasion. If you had given the apartment, I would have married a jerk and only then realized what he was like.
Ksenia nodded. Sometimes refusal is also a form of help, even if it doesn't seem so at the moment.
And Artem, how is he?
She couldn't help but ask.
Not well. He lives with Mom, drinks in the evenings, complains about injustice, says you robbed him.
I see.
And you regret it?
Ksenia thought about whether she regretted the divorce, not giving in, the broken marriage. No, she answered honestly, not at all. Alina paid and headed for the exit. At the door, she turned around and said,
Ksenia, can I ask you for something?
Go ahead.
If you ever run into Mom somewhere, don't tell her we talked. She still hopes you will change your mind.
Okay.
And one more thing. You did the right thing by not letting yourself be used.
Alina left, leaving Ksenia alone with her thoughts. So even in Artem's family, not everyone supported his decision. But it no longer mattered. At home, Ksenia turned on the music and started preparing dinner. For the first time in a long time, she was cooking only for herself, a small portion, the foods she loved. She didn't have to think about her husband's tastes or her mother-in-law's preferences. The phone lay silently on the kitchen table. Artem no longer called. 2 months after the divorce, a new doctor, Maxim, a surgeon from the capital, tall, calm, with attentive gray eyes, started working at the hospital where Ksenia worked. He didn't ask colleagues about their personal lives or start workplace romances. He just worked. Ksenia didn't notice him right away. Too much time had been spent licking her emotional wounds and believing in her own strength. But when she did notice him, she realized this is what a man should look like: confident, independent, respectful of boundaries.
Ksenia Andreevna, can I have a moment?
He approached her after surgery.
Of course. I wanted to thank you for your help. You are an excellent nurse.
The compliment sounded simple, without fawning. Maxim said what he thought. Thank you, Ksenia smiled. They began to communicate cautiously, like adults. First conversations in the hospital corridors, then coffee in the cafeteria, followed by walks around the city. Maxim talked about working in Moscow clinics and why he decided to move to the province. Ksenia shared her plans for the future. She wanted to get a higher medical education.
You have a beautiful apartment, he said when she first invited him over.
Yes, Ksenia nodded. This is my home. He caught the intonation and didn't ask for details. Tact is a rare quality that was so lacking in her previous marriage. Over dinner, they talked about books, travels, and weekend plans. No one tried to impose their opinion or make decisions for the other.
Can I come over tomorrow?
He asked before leaving. You can, Ksenia replied, her heart beating faster. A year passed. Ksenia enrolled in a medical institute in the correspondence department. Maxim got a promotion and became the head of the surgical department.
Ksenia put down her fork. The question was expected, but no less difficult because of that. And what step do you mean? Moving in together? Getting married? Or both? She looked at this intelligent, kind man and realized she was afraid. Afraid to trust again, to be deceived again. Maxim, what if I never want to get married? Then you won't, he simply replied. I'm not going to force you. And if I want to, but not soon, I'll wait. And if never, then we'll just be together.
I don't need a stamp in my passport to love you. Ksenia felt something warm spreading in her chest. Here it was, respect for her choice, her pace, her fears. I'm afraid to make the same mistake, she confessed. What mistake? Marrying a jerk? Maxim took her hand. Ksyusha, I'm not Artem, and you're not the naive girl you were 3 years ago. How do you know about Artem? Everyone in the hospital knows about each other, he smiled. But that's not the main thing. The main thing is that you've learned to say no, and that's priceless. Ksenia squeezed his fingers tighter. Yes, she had learned, and it was indeed priceless. Do you want to move into my apartment? Maxim suggested. It's bigger, and the neighborhood is better. No, Ksenia replied without hesitation. My apartment will remain mine. And mine will remain mine? Yes, and we'll live sometimes here, sometimes there, or we'll buy a third one together. Maxim laughed. A practical woman, I like that. Ksenia also smiled. She remembered the lesson her first marriage had taught her. Never again would she depend on a man financially. Never would she let someone else make decisions for her. And never would she give away what rightfully belonged to her. Do you know what I like most about you? Maxim asked. That you don't try to please me, don't agree with everything I say, and have your own opinion. Artem didn't like that. Artem is a fool, and I'm smart. I'm interested in strong women. They walked through the evening city holding hands. Pedestrians hurried about their business. Lights came on in the windows of houses. An ordinary weekday evening, but for Ksenia, it seemed special. Do you remember that day at the housewarming, when you kicked out your ex-husband? I remember. And how do you know? Your mom told my mom, and she told me. Ksenia was surprised. Our moms know each other? They've been friends for about 10 years and live in the same neighborhood. And what did Mom say? That you did the right thing and that if I hurt you, she would tear your head off. Ksenia laughed. So even their moms approved of her actions. And what is Artem doing now? Maxim inquired. He works as a loader in a supermarket, lives with his mother, and sometimes sends messages asking to meet. And what do you reply? Nothing. I've blocked him everywhere. That's right. They reached Ksenia's house. At the entrance, Maxim stopped. Can I stay tonight? You can, she smiled. Going up in the elevator, Ksenia thought about how much her life had changed in these 2 years. Then, on the day of the housewarming, she thought she was protecting only the apartment. But in reality, she was protecting herself, her right to respect her own opinion and a decent life. The apartment welcomed them with warmth and coziness. There was nothing alien, imposed, or unpleasant here. Everything was in its place. In the morning, Maxim made breakfast while Ksenia got ready for work. They moved around the kitchen without getting in each other's way, like a long married couple. By the way, Maxim said, flipping an omelet, I saw your ex at the hospital yesterday. Ksenia froze with a hairbrush in her hand. Artem? What was he doing there? He brought his mother. She had a mild heart attack, but was hospitalized for observation. Ksenia thought about it. Nina was that she was doing great and that she was happy. Ksenia approached Maxim and hugged him around the waist. Yes, she was indeed happy. And what did he say? Nothing, just nodded and left. He has aged a lot and lost weight. Ksenia imagined her ex-husband, worn out, broken, and lonely, and realized that she felt neither gloating nor pity, just indifference. Do you feel sorry for him? Maxim asked as if reading her mind. No, he chose his own path.
And if he had apologized, then admitted his mistake? Ksenia thought about it. Would she have forgiven Artem if he had sincerely repented? I don't know, she answered honestly. Maybe, but he didn't apologize. He tried to persuade me. That's the whole difference between I'm sorry I was wrong and you don't understand, I meant well. Maxime turned off the stove and turned to her. I promise you, if I ever do something wrong, I will apologize sincerely, not make excuses. At work, Ksenia found out that Nina was in their department. Professional duty required her to visit the patient, but her soul resisted meeting her former mother-in-law. At the end of her shift, she still went into the ward. Nina lay in bed, connected to an IV. She looked pitiful. Her gray hair was disheveled and her face was gaunt. Ksenia! She was surprised to see her former daughter-in-law. Hello, how are you feeling? Badly. My heart hurts. My blood pressure jumps. Artem has completely lost control and started drinking. Ksenia sighed, not knowing what to say. This is all because of you. You ruined the family and drove my son to drink. I didn't drive anyone, Ksenia replied calmly. Artem chooses how to live on his own. You could have forgiven and met halfway. Forgive what? Nina asked. That he wanted to give my home to a stranger without my consent? Alina is not a stranger. She's a relative. She was a stranger to me and remains one. Nina turned away to the wall. You're heartless, completely without pity. Ksenia looked at this woman and thought that once she had been afraid of her judgment, worried about every critical remark and tried to earn her approval. Get well soon, she said and headed for the exit. Wait, Nina called out. Is it true that you're getting married to that doctor? It's unknown. Can he at least buy an apartment or will he live on your money again? Ksenia turned around. He has his own apartment, a good job, and a head on his shoulders. Nina grimaced, but said nothing. In the evening at home, Ksenia told Maxime about the conversation with Nina. She still considers you guilty, he smirked. And she will to the end of her life. Does this upset you? It used to, but not anymore. Maxime hugged her. Do you know what your main victory is? Not that you kept the apartment, but that you learned not to depend on someone else's opinion. Ksenia pressed against his shoulder. Yes, this was a real victory, the liberation from the need to please everyone, to satisfy everyone, to justify herself to everyone. Do you remember what your mom said that day? Maxime asked. What exactly? That if Artem truly loved you, he would find a way to fix everything. I remember. He didn't find a way. No, he didn't. So he didn't love me, probably. And I do love you, Maxime said quietly. And I'm not going to look for a way. I'll just love and respect you. Ksenia lifted her head and looked into his eyes. There was no falsity, no calculation, no attempt to prove anything. Only sincerity. I love you too, she replied. Outside the window, the summer day was fading. The apartment smelled of dinner and homely comfort. Documents lay on the table. Ksenia was preparing for exams at the institute. Violets that Maxime had given her bloomed on the windowsill. An ordinary evening of ordinary people who do not try to remake or use each other, who simply live side by side and rejoice in this closeness. And what will happen to Artem?
They went down to the cafeteria for lunch. At the next table, young doctors were discussing a complex operation. Life went on, events developed, and people solved their problems. Listen, Maxime said, stirring his coffee. What if we really buy a common apartment? Why? We already have two. For the children when they appear. Ksenia froze with a sandwich at her lips. Children. She had tried not to think about them after the divorce. It was too painful to imagine how her relationship with Artem might have turned out if they had a child. Do you want children? With you? And you? Ksenia thought about it. Did she want children? Yes, she did, but not with Artem. With him, she subconsciously understood that children would become another means of control, but with Maxime, everything would be different. I do, she admitted, but not now. In a year or two when I finish the institute. Yes, I want to become a doctor first. A smart girl, Maxime smiled. First education, then children. Ksenia thought about how Artem would have reacted to such plans. Most likely he would have pressured her and demanded that she immediately give birth to an heiress. After all, a daughter-in-law should continue the family line, not waste time on some education. And what will your mom say? She asked. That we made the right decision. First, stand on our own feet, then start a family. In the evening, they walked along the embankment. The river reflected the city lights. Couples sat on benches and children rode bicycles. A picture of calm, family happiness. And do you know what I like most about our relationship? What? That we discuss all important issues and make decisions together. How else? Artem made decisions for you and then presented you with a fait accompli. Maxime stopped and took her hands. Ksusha, I will never make decisions for you, not even in small things. This is your life, and only you have the right to choose how to live it. Ksenia stood onto tiptoes and kissed him. In this kiss, there was gratitude for understanding, respect, and love without attempts to subjugate. Do you want to look at apartments tomorrow? Maxime suggested. For the future family. Let's look, she agreed. But we'll buy it together. Of course. They chose a 3-room apartment in a new building, bright, spacious, with a large kitchen and a children's room. Each contributed half of the amount, and each became the owner of equal share. Now we have a common home, Maxime said, receiving the keys. Yes, our common home, Ksenia said with a special feeling. For the first time in her life, she was buying a home not alone, but with a partner, an equal partner who did not try to take her property or impose his conditions. They also furnished the apartment together. They chose furniture, discussed every purchase, and took each other's opinions into account. No one dictated how their home should look. And what will we do with the old apartments? Maxime asked. Rent them out. Let them bring in income. A good idea. Passive income won't hurt anyone. Ksenia smiled. Here was another difference between Maxime and Artem. The new man did not claim her property and did not demand that she sell it or give it to relatives. They arranged a modest housewarming party, inviting only the closest people, Ksenia's parents, Maxime's mother, and a few colleagues from the hospital. There were no unexpected surprises or unpleasant statements. To the newlyweds, Victor raised a toast, to their happiness and understanding. May they always remain as wise as they are now, Tamara added. Maxime hugged Ksenia around his waist. To our family, our home, our future. Ksenia drank champagne and thought about how her life had changed. 3 years ago, she stood in a different apartment and heard completely different toasts. Then her husband decided to give her home to a stranger. Now, next to her stood a man who bought a common home with her on equal terms. What are you thinking about? Maxime asked quietly. About how good it was that I didn't give in back then. If I had given in, we wouldn't have met.
And you? Ksenia thought for a moment. Did she think about the wedding? Yes, sometimes, but without fear, without doubt. With Maxime, marriage did not seem like a trap or a way to lose independence. I think about it, she admitted, but I'm not in a hurry. And that's right, there's no need to rush. And what about your mom? Doesn't she worry? She wants grandchildren. She does, but she says it's better to have late grandchildren from happy parents than early ones from unhappy ones. Ksenia laughed. Your mom is a wise woman. And yours is wise too. She saw through Artem right away. Moms generally have a good sense of men. It's their intuition. A year later, Ksenia defended her diploma and became a doctor. On the day of her defense, Maxim proposed to her, giving her a diamond ring and a bouquet of white roses. "Marry me, Dr. Ksenia Andreevna," he said, kneeling in the middle of the hospital courtyard. "Yes," she replied without hesitation. Colleagues applauded. Someone filmed it on their phone. The moment turned out beautiful and romantic. They had a small wedding with about 30 of the closest people. Ksenia was in a white dress and Maxim was in a black suit. They exchanged rings and vows to love and respect each other. "Now we are officially a family," Maxim said, kissing his young wife. "We were a family before," Ksenia replied. "Now it's just officially documented." There was no Artem, Nina, or Alina at the wedding. Ksenia didn't even think of inviting them. This was a celebration of a new life, not memories of the old one. They spent their honeymoon in Italy. Maxim had long dreamed of showing his wife Venice and Rome. Ksenia went abroad for the first time in her life and was delighted with every little thing. "It's good that we waited with the wedding," she said, standing on a bridge over a Venetian canal. "Why?" "Now I can appreciate all this. At 22, I would have just taken photos against the backdrop of sights. And now you understand that traveling is about shared experiences, about sharing emotions with a loved one." Maxim hugged her around the waist. "And it's also about the fact that we can afford it. Both of us work and earn money. Yes, financial independence is freedom." They returned from their honeymoon rested and happy. Ksenia started working as a doctor in the same hospital where she met her husband. 6 months after the wedding, Ksenia found out she was pregnant. She sat in the gynecologist's office and looked at the test results, not believing her eyes. "Congratulations," the doctor smiled. "It's early, about 4 weeks." Ksenia left the hospital in a daze. A child! She was going to have a child with Maxim. This thought was both frightening and joyful. At home, she walked around the apartment for a long time, thinking about how to tell her husband the news. She wanted to do it beautifully and unusually. In the end, she simply placed the test on his desk and waited. Maxim came home late, tired from a difficult operation. He saw the test, froze, then picked up Ksenia and spun her around the room. "We're going to be parents! We're going to have a baby!" "Are you happy?" Ksenia asked when he put her down. "Incredibly happy. And you?" "I'm happy too, and a little scared." "What are you afraid of?" "That I won't cope, that I'll be a bad mother." Maxim hugged her tightly. "You'll be a wonderful mother because you know how to love and protect." The pregnancy went smoothly. Maxim surrounded his wife with care, but did not turn her into a helpless vessel for carrying an heir. Ksenia continued to work until the 7th month, then went on maternity leave. "What will we name the baby?" Maxim asked, stroking his rounded belly. "If it's a boy, Danila. If it's a girl, Sophia." Beautiful names. "And the patronymic will be Maximovich or Maximovna?"
"Yes, and the surname will be yours." "Ours," Maxim corrected himself. "Now we have a common surname." Ksenia smiled. Yes, now everything was common. Home, surname, plans for the future. And soon, the most precious common treasure would appear. Tamara and Maxim's mother knitted booties and argued about who the baby would resemble more. Victor made a crib in the nursery. Everyone was preparing for the appearance of a new family member. No one remembered the time when Ksenia was married to Artem. That life seemed distant and alien, like a bad dream. "Imagine," Ksenia said shortly before giving birth,
If I had given in back then, our child would have been born in a rented apartment to unhappy parents. He wouldn't have been born at all, because I wouldn't have met you. So everything is for the best. Everything is for the best. They returned from their honeymoon, rested and happy. Xenia started working as a doctor in the same hospital where she met her husband. 6 months after the wedding, Xenia found out she was pregnant. She sat in the gynecologist's office, looking at the test results, not believing her eyes. "Congratulations," the doctor smiled. "It's early, about 4 weeks." Xenia left the hospital in a daze. A child. She was going to have a child with Maxime. The thought was both frightening and joyful. At home, she walked around the apartment for a long time, thinking about how to tell her husband the news. She wanted to do it beautifully and unusually. In the end, she simply placed the test on his desk and waited. Maxime came home late, tired after a difficult operation. He saw the test, froze, then picked up Xenia and spun her around the room. "We're going to be parents. We're going to have a baby." "Are you happy?" Xenia asked when he put her down. "Incredibly happy. And you?" "I'm happy too, and a little scared." "What are you afraid of?" "That I won't cope, that I'll be a bad mother." Maxime hugged her tightly. "You'll be a wonderful mother because you know how to love and protect." The pregnancy went smoothly. Maxime surrounded his wife with care, but did not turn her into a helpless vessel for carrying an heir. Xenia continued to work until the 7th month, then went on maternity leave. "What will we name the baby?" Maxime asked, stroking her rounded belly. "If it's a boy, Danila. If it's a girl, Sofia. Beautiful names. And the patronymic will be Maximovich or Maximovna." "Yes, and the surname will be yours." "Ours," Maxim corrected himself. "Now we have a common surname." Xenia smiled. Yes, now everything was common. Home, surname, plans for the future. And soon the most precious common treasure would appear. Tamara and Maxime's mother knitted booties and argued about who the baby would resemble more. Victor made a crib in the nursery. Everyone was preparing for the appearance of a new family member. No one remembered the time when Xenia was married to Artem. That life seemed distant and alien, like a bad dream. "Imagine," Xenia said, shortly before giving birth, "if I had given in back then, our child would have been born in a rented apartment to unhappy parents. He wouldn't have been born at all, because I wouldn't have met you. So everything is for the best. Everything is for the best."